and this is also why I do the work I do today, in most cases, guidance counselors are only meant to tell you what you're qualified for based off of your transcript. They are not in any way there to tell you, push for this potential. So when I went to my guidance counselor, I think the first time I met her was probably sophomore transition to junior year. She just looked at my grades and then she said, these generally are the schools that you're qualified for.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Lifestrong Project again. I'm your gracious host, AC. And as always, I count it an honor and a privilege to be a part of bringing these great conversations and interviews to all of our listeners. On today, on the Lifestrong Project, we're talking about growth, purpose, and becoming whole, not just success. All right. We're naming a hard truth. Depression, anxiety, and suicide are rising among Black youth and Black people in general, but among Black youth and college students, driven by the intense pressure to achieve. Success is up, but so are mental health struggles. The conversation is about redefining success to include wholeness, healing, and mental well-being. So on today's guest is the founder of Lionheart Coaching Academy and the co-creator of Black Founders Formula. She's a high achiever herself who she's already published books. She's built a nonprofit with million plus reach. And she is even she went to Princeton. All right. So that itself, kudos to her. All right. But while she was there, she was silently battling depression, anxiety, and even more. Her story shows that external success doesn't always equal internal peace. We're going to explore elite achievement in a post-affirmative action world, why high-achieving Black students are burning out, and how families can pursue excellence without losing themselves or their loved ones. Lifestrong family, please help me welcome our guest today. And I came prepared today, Nicole Olaniyi. Did I get it right?
Perfect. It's an honor to be here.
Prepared.
I love it. You say it better than me.
Welcome back to the Lifestrong Project. Thank you so much for doing this. Again, hey, just tell the people who you are and just a general roundabout of who you are and what you've done and what you are doing.
Thank you so much. I'd say the heart of what I do is help students get into college to maximize their opportunities while minimizing the burnout and the guesswork in that process. So we want parents and students to feel like there is a clear plan, that they're not being reactive in the process. It's unfortunate, the statistics now, Black youth, not only are we declining in mental health, also declining in admission at the top colleges in this country. And we know that most of the wealth for college students is in these top colleges as well. So making sure students have access to that money, that's my life's work.
That's awesome. You yourself, and we talked about it in the intro, you yourself are, you're not your average everyday, or you weren't your average, because you're a graduate now, right?
Mm-hmm,
so,
yeah.
So, you've gone through the whole rigmarole, you've gone through the process. What are some of those hills and valleys that you are trying to alleviate, families, prepare families to deal with and alleviate some of those struggles? Because I have children, and they've gone to school but they didn't go to Princeton, so I can only imagine like the stress levels that you had going there. Talk about some of those struggles.
Thank you. Oh yeah, it was intense. When I think about the work that I do now, as I've met a lot of education consultants, I find a lot of individuals come into this work from this place of wanting to make it easier for both parents and students. And that's also, my desire as well. But in addition to that, being in the student seat, having gone through the rigorous middle school experience, high school experience, and the college experience, for me, when I thought about, what I believe that I was called to do and how I can make the most impact, it really was helping other students navigate those critical moments of decision. When you're looking at elite admissions, what that ultimately means is you need to be able to stand out in an applicant pool of thousands, and you need to be able to stand out. For Princeton, I think when I applied, it was a 6% acceptance rate. So you have to be better than all that other majority. And when I was putting together my application, I just got to this point of, I call it the hamster wheel, where you're just adding on extracurriculars. You're adding on, like, okay, let me be president of this. Let me join this. And when you're someone who, I grew up in church, so I had a lot of exposure to leadership. And I didn't necessarily name it at the time, but I knew intuitively I needed to lead spaces. I needed to be co-creating spaces in order to be able to differentiate myself. And where I found myself is I was just doing too much. And I found that, especially when I got into this work, that's not often something that's named. For a lot of students that are in very competitive environments, often we look at the students that maybe aren't doing enough, and that's definitely really, really important work. We want students to connect to purpose. We want them to find what they care about, all of that. However, you get this other extreme where, someone like me, I want to pursue purpose. I want to figure that, who I am at 14, at 15, at 16. At the same time, there's a financial pressure and there's a social pressure to make the most of my potential. That's what I often found. I grew up being told, you're going to be president one day, you'll do this one day. And so there was this immense pressure, especially being, I was, the oldest of four, a pastor's kid. There was immense pressure to make the best decisions. And it was like the college admission was what was going to demonstrate that I fulfilled my potential, and I laid a foundation for greater potential. And so for me, helping students, it's not just about getting in, it's about, what does this mean to you, right? It has to be more than just approval from your local community, from your family, from your parents. And so I really believe that we don't have to throw out the goal of elite admissions, but we do have to integrate purpose and the mental health piece so it's sustainable.
I'm curious because what was greater to you through your process? What was greater, the fear of failing or the pressure that you felt you had to succeed? Because you said you had all these people saying, hey, you're going to do this, you're going to be president, you're going to do this, you're going to do all these great things. Which was better? Did you feel like, man, if I don't do that, I'm a failure? Or was it, man, I've got to do it because I've got all these people counting on me?
That's a great question. I think they were interconnected, and I don't think I could ever separate the fear from the pressure, which is what made it so difficult. When I got to Princeton, and this is the one job I had outside of being an entrepreneur, I worked at the McGraw Center for Teaching and Learning, and I became an academic life and learning consultant at Princeton, which is a very unique role and a very unique kind of department at Princeton. But in short, when I got there, I signed up for a consultation because I was struggling with depression. I didn't know it was depression at the time, but I was really struggling with engagement in my work. I had to drop a class. I was supposed to take 4. I was like, I need to take 3. And so I did that. And I started therapy, but I started these academic life and learning consultations. And I was taking this history of science course. And basically in this history of science course, it was like an upper class. And I was like, oh, let me just try it. You read a scientific texts, but they're inaccurate because they're from the 18th and 19th century. So anyway, it was very rough, rough, text. And it was primary source documents. And long story short, I went to my first consultation, and the consultant could just see the fear on me when I was trying to read. He was like, "Are you okay?" Like, I literally started breaking down crying. I'm so afraid of failing, and I'm so afraid of not even making the most of this Princeton opportunity. And so it was something as small as like struggling to, like, I know I can read, but like, it was something as small as like trying to read for this class. It was like, well, if I don't figure out this reading, I'm going to fail the test. If I fail the test, I'm going to fail the exam. If I fail the exam, I'm going to fail Princeton. Like the catastrophizing, which, if from the mental health framework, I had a lot of work to do around emotional regulation, all that. But being in this place definitely magnified, those emotional, mental tensions that I was experiencing.
Oh, wow. I can't even, I'm hearing it. I'm sure is one thing, and trying to, visualize that. But I mean, I can't even imagine someone going through something like that. And did you, because not everybody gets into Princeton, like you said, 6%. acceptance rate. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong. Were you saying 6% period? Or are you saying 6% for people of color? Because I'm
Period,
sure,
period,
period,
period.
right?
Hmm,
So
hmm.
then I'm sure, you throw that aspect in there, it made it
Mm,
even more
even
difficult.
lower. Yeah.
Did you did you feel did you feel guilt at
Mm.
some point? Did you feel like I've made it, but there's so many that tried or are just as smart as me, working just as hard, and they didn't make it. Did you feel guilt, and maybe did that attribute to, everything you were going through? Because that's and let me take a step back. I don't feel you should have felt guilt. But I'm wondering if that attributed to the way you were feeling and the thoughts you had. Uh, did, I don't know. Did you feel anything like that?
When I first got into Princeton, my first thought was you only got into one Ivy. My first thought was you did not succeed. You should have got
Wait a
into
minute.
more Ivies.
Oh, you just got the one. Okay.
Because my friend at the
Wow.
time, she went to Harvard and then went to Harvard Law. Brilliant woman. She got into Harvard and Princeton, I believe some of the other Ivies. And so,
Okay.
and then, when you're in these different, like the Facebook group for Princeton admits, students are deciding between Harvard and Princeton, Princeton and UPenn, Harvard and UPenn. And you kind of feel it becomes, it's like its own little community. And you kind of feel like, in this community, everyone's discussing, and I'm saying everyone, this is a very small percentage of the
Right.
population,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's everyone to me, outside of my high school at this time. And so, when they're contemplating Harvard versus Princeton, I'm like, well, I only got into Princeton. So this is the only Ivy I'm considering. For me, the decision was between Princeton and Howard because my parents were alum and Howard offered a lot to me. Regardless of that fact, once I was at Princeton, and also, mind you, I did Princeton's Bridge Year program, which is essentially a fully funded gap year. So I lived in Senegal, West Africa for a year before I started Princeton. So I was with a cohort of 6 other Princeton students. When I started meeting the students that got into Princeton, at first, like when you read people's bios, because it's like the best version of them and all the things they accomplished, you're like intimidated. You're like, this woman solved world hunger. How did I get here? And I'm exaggerating, but like they did pretty crazy things. Like people like worked on like renowned research, and you're just like, what in the world did they see in my application, right? But then once you meet these people, I kind of felt like everybody oversold themselves. And this is, core to what I do today. Like, yes, you achieved all these things, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, like you're very void and disconnected. And this was, to a far extent myself as well. And I kind of felt like in this pool of accomplishment, Michelle Obama, I went to one of her events when she was doing her book tour, and she said the same thing. The higher I got, the greater rooms I got in, she would be surprised and shocked at like the lack of competence, essentially. And that's where I kind of felt. So to your question about guilt, in the very beginning, it was more like it was a lot of internal comparison with these other people. So I wasn't even thinking about the other Black kids that had applied. I was dealing with the racist white and Asian kids that were telling me I only got in because I was Black. I was really the only Black kid that would have applied to Princeton in my year because I was the only, there's one in me and one other student that were the only Black kids in our AP classes. So in terms of like competition, I didn't feel like I didn't like the other Black kids outside of my friend that got into Harvard and she got in. So I didn't feel like I took her spot, were, all kind of, they were not in my mind. And then, so then when I met people at Princeton, I didn't feel guilty. I was like honestly surprised. And I felt like the system was very broken because I felt like it was being optimized for the things that are not actually what matter the most to our souls and to our humanity.
Wow. Um, so you actually had Asian and white kids tell you you're only here because of your skin color, because you're Black. Basically, I guess that what they were saying was you're just here to fill that quota.
Mm-hmm. It was mostly students before I got to Princeton in my high school who had also applied to Princeton who were jealous. There was an Asian student. She got into Carnegie Mellon. She was very successful today, but she did research at Princeton. And she felt like because she did the research at Princeton and and a Princeton professor wrote her a recommendation. she felt like her application, there's no way mine could have been better. And this is, again, part of why I do the work today, because a lot of families have that logic. They spend thousands of dollars to have their kids do some research project at Princeton, and they don't get in because that's not what college admissions officers are looking for. But at the time, all I knew was you're wrong.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's wow. So where do you think the pressure starts? So let's go all the way back to high school. Or maybe, and
Hmm.
I could be wrong. I'm just theorizing high school.
Hmm.
Correct me if I'm wrong if it starts before high school, but I'm just saying let's go back to high school. Maybe freshman, sophomore year. Um, you know, you go visit your guidance counselor. This teacher says, she's expecting this out of you. Maybe parents, or around that time where they're like, man, ooh, he's on his way to college in a few years. Is that when it start? About when does that pressure? When did that pressure kick in for you?
That's a good question. So, two things. One, and this is also why I do the work I do today. In most cases, guidance counselors are only meant to tell you what you're qualified for based off of your transcript. They are not in any way there to tell you push for this potential. So when I went to my guidance counselor, I think the first time I met her was probably sophomore transition to junior year. She just looked at my grades and then she said, these generally are the schools that you're qualified for. I had to push for the Ivy Leagues. My dad had to get special permission from the principal to like have me take more APs to be more competitive. So on the school side, that the pressure was not coming from the school. They were expecting the bare minimum out of me. For me, the pressure was, and this is what I find for most high achieving students, it is a mix of really, really good intentions from parents and the local community around them to speak life into their potential. So my dad, he grew up inner city Philadelphia. He was one of the first Black executives to work on Wall Street, very successful career. And I was aware of that. I was, as I got older, I was aware of the sacrifices he made. They, sacrificed a lot of vacations to put us in the top private schools. We had a nanny, housekeeper growing up. And then my dad had this encounter, in his narration with God, where he believed that he needed to let everything go because he saw in us that we were extremely spoiled. So he became a pastor, long story short, and we became missionaries in Cape Town, South Africa. And through that process, while I didn't fully understand the God thing and why we had to leave and go across the ocean, all these things, I knew that there was something more valuable in this world than achievement. And so for me, as I process that, even in interfaith based
And and
context,
and you're how old at this time? Oh,
at this time, like 9, 10.
oh, okay.
Hmm.
I
Yes,
was so
but so what,
expecting 15.
after we, for no, for most of the time in Cape Town, my internal dialogue was, I'm not with my friends anymore. I'm very alone. So that was that. But when we came back to the States, and at this point I'm in middle school, and I'm like, and our lifestyle in the U.S. has completely changed to what it was. I'm starting to process like, why did my dad leave Maryland? Why are we in New Jersey? Why are we at this church? Why are
Yeah.
people looking up to me? Like, it was a lot. So all that to say, for me, the pressure really came from in-house, like my parents and the community. Not because anybody said like do this or you're a terrible person, but genuinely because like I was a pillar in the community at that point. I was looked up to by all the other youth. I was the oldest of four. My dad expected great things. My mom expected great things. They've invested a lot. So I always felt pressure to honor their sacrifices. And then my dad, he's a history buff. He's studied the history of our family. He talks about how our great 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 grandfather was mowing lawns. Like, so he's always talking about, man, like when you get into Princeton or when you do this, like this is a generational
Mm,
breakthrough. So I just felt this like, and it wasn't, he didn't intend it in a bad way. I don't believe that at all. But it for me, as the person that has to show up to school every day and then do the homework and then do the clubs, it was like, okay, I got to get this right. I have to get this right. It was hyper vigilance, hyper performance.
you so describing achievement culture as a mental health crisis. All right.
Mm,
What does that crisis and I'm sure you're going to elaborate on crisis. What does it actually look like behind the scenes? Behind you've got and I'm sure you probably experienced it. You've got this student who's pitching their best self in front of guidance counselors or admissions personnel or whatever. But
mhm,
behind that, um, what does the mental health crisis actually look like?
I think for a high achieving student, at least in my experience, and as I've watched a lot of my peers, even my own siblings, one, you experience internal conflict because that crisis that you're experiencing is constantly rewarded. One of my major struggles in my therapy room was changing my habits around work as it related to anxiety. So for me, a lot of my high performance was totally motivated by anxiety. So I will wake up at midnight and I will work until 6 a.m. and I will get some of my best work done that's driven by anxiety. At the same time, that high quality work is then rewarded through my grades. It's rewarded through people telling me how brilliant I am. So I think first and foremost is an internal conflict around, is it even worth addressing the issue because it's being so, it's benefiting me essentially.
Did you because me hearing you say that, if I didn't know your story, we never had this conversation. And you told me, yeah, I get some of my best work done between midnight and 6 in the morning and this and I'm like, whoa, you need to chill. You need to take a step back.
Hmm.
Were you telling people that this is what was going on? And if you were, was anybody saying exactly that? Like, it's not healthy. It's not, were there any signs? And I'm sure there probably weren't. But did you tell anybody?
I think the larger issue is no one is asking. No one
Yeah,
is asking. And if someone sees you, like my RCA, my residential college, college, whatever, the older upperclassmen that lived
yeah,
with us in the dorms,
yeah.
when he saw me, the other student, I didn't do parties or anything like that. So, and I went to community, to faith groups, church groups. So when he saw me, it was like, all right, she's doing this, which is a little weird because everybody else is asleep by 3. But like, I mean, other kids are doing, other crazy things. So I think there's a very like hyper, like there's a work hard, play hard culture at Princeton and a lot of these other top colleges where it's like, we get great grades, we get great internships, we do great things, but like we play hard. And for me, I didn't have the play hard part. So I still had, fun. My definition of play was very different, I'll say, in college. But that to be said, like when people saw me, because all the people in my dorm were like, why is her sleep schedule like this? Because I would sleep like in the day, basically.
Wow.
um it was like, we all have our things. So I think there's that. And then this is part of why I became an academic life and learning consultant at Princeton, because I was watching my peers freshman year like just do the most toxic things, like not sleep before the night of an exam. And I felt like, I mean, the college can't do everything, but I felt like success was not about the grade or the outcome, it was about the process. And so I slowly
Mm,
started, I had to consciously make a decision, like I'm going to learn how to Sabbath, I'm going to learn how to sleep 8 hours a night. And for me, it actually became a life or death thing in terms of my mental health, because I learned that sleep deprivation definitely amplifies anxiety, amplifies depression. So I had to make a choice. But if I didn't make that choice, it would have been business as usual. And she's just a hard worker.
wow. So nobody, and maybe it's because. So here's the question: What should maybe you have one of those individuals listen to the show? Maybe they're an upperclassman, and they're responsible for other, and they see this individual, they see this quote unquote Nicole that is, man, you have the weirdest sleep schedule. Man, you really are. Wow, you do some of the. And what are some of the things they should look for? What are there any clues, telltale signs that people should look for?
I think, I mean, one, I'll say yes. However, at the same time, I think that, and this is a huge part of the work that we do with our students in middle and high school, the
Mhm.
work has to be around self advocacy. And what I mean by that is we have to equip our young people with tools to speak up for themselves and to name their experiences. Because, there were times, I did experience a lot of stress. I had a lot of anxiety. People around me could feel that. And so there were times that people checked in on me, asked how I'm doing, especially my spiritual leaders at the time, like when I was in faith groups, stuff like that. There were people that asked me how I was doing. But, when I look back in those, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
We're honest now. Now, when they stopped by and said, "Hey, you doing okay?" Were you honest, or did you feel the need to kind of, sugarcoat it and say,
Well, that's
"No,
my
I'm
point
good."
about self-advocacy. When you don't know something is wrong, you think you're telling the truth. I genuinely, like, especially as a Christian, like, I would never lie to someone that I considered a
Right,
spiritual
right.
leader. But so when they're asking, am I good? I'm like, yeah, I'm great. Like, grades are well, I'm connected, I have friends, da 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 da, like I'm exercising. Like, so like in my mind, I am doing well, right? And that's why, again, all of our work, really all of the work we do with our students, high achieving students, is around prevention, and it's about self-advocacy. Because at the end of the day, like, a student has to know that what they're experiencing is not normal. And if everyone around them is normalizing it, they will never come and say, I need help. They will never come and do that. It wasn't until I got to a place of suicidal ideation that I was like, okay, something's wrong. But if I never got to that point, so just transparently, I experienced a sexual assault a few months before I started Princeton. So from like the high achievement, I honestly 100% believe that I never would have thought to question it if I didn't go through that traumatic experience. That traumatic experience truly amplified all my poor foundation emotionally and mentally. So and even a lot of my peers that I watched, I had a friend that left Princeton early. Usually it's like some type of life crisis that happens, a death in the family, something unexpected happened. And then that kind of triggers, like, everything unravels, and all the brokenness that we were kind of able to hide, not knowing that's what we're doing, but that we were able to hide, it gets, a light is shined on it. And then we have to make a choice if we're going to continue that way, that lifestyle, or if we're going to make some fundamental changes. And I really, so much respect to my friend. She was like, this culture is feeding all the unhealthy things in me. I need to leave.
Wow, wow. Let's talk about the role, or the I guess the relationship of parent and child during,
Mm.
that process. And because with what you do, I'm sure you deal with the parents just as much as the child. Probably more so the parent, because the parents are the ones that are, quote unquote, we're getting our child ready for college. We want our child to be ready, prepared, and I'm curious because there's got to be all kind of different levels that you're dealing with as far as parents go. Probably the one like your dad, that the one that's, educated and gone on to do great things, and wants their child to be successful. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there could be the parent, and this is no shade to the parents. I'm not trying to, but it could be the parent that maybe never even went to college.
Mm-hmm.
So um their thought process of getting ready for college may be totally different from somebody who actually did. How do you, when you get involved, you get the call or you get the email and you sit down with them, how do you uh you know differentiate, how do you act, um you know between, the one on the left and the one on the right,
Mm.
and get your point across
Mm.
effectively?
So I will say we have intentionally designed our system in such a way where it is intentionally student driven. So when we enroll a family, I walk them through what the process is, and I'm very clear this process is student driven. So we will never, sometimes parents are concerned that we might force something. And so I say, we will never force anything onto your child. The projects that we build are up to them. If they want to build like I have one kid, he wants to go to Harvard and he's committed to build a national nonprofit. Cool, we're doing that. I have another kid, she is like, we're going to have her do an independent project for her. She's really into coding and game design. She's going to do like a small project. She's not trying to build anything beyond that. And that's great, right? And in both cases, that portfolio is making them more competitive than they would have been without our support. So, from a place of parents feeling like they got their money worth, we're good on that. So with we never have parents that will overstep after we set the boundary. I'll say it like that. So I recently had a mom who, she kept asking me for information, like about her son's leadership project that we were working on, and I just straight up said, like, he needs to show up. So Then so we leave it at that, and it's in the contract. So I mean, if and then I always say, like, if you don't feel like we're aligned, like, we can part ways, because like I believe it has to be student driven, so we're non-negotiable on that. And then to your point about this, the families that are first gen, we actually the what I found in our market research and my conversations with parents, the messaging to attracting a client that's first generation is very different from messaging that's attracting someone who's actually been to college. All of my parents, I don't have a single parent that I've enrolled, because this is what they pay us for, who said, I understand the college process. You invest in us because you don't understand. So even though you went to college, it's so different now, right? And so we actually don't have currently any students that are first generation. We're actually actively, most of my team, however, is first generation. So we're actively working on building a course for first generation, but we determined it actually has to be separate, because the skills that someone needs who's coming first generation are actually much different. Well, they're the same principles, but there's a lot more that has to go into the skill development for a first generation student than a student whose parents have gone to college, because again, there's all this this culture, right, that's being picked up in the home in a college educated household versus not.
So when did Lion let's shift gears and talk about Lionheart Coaching Academy. Actually, we'll talk about that first, then we'll get to Black Founders Formula. So
Sure.
so Lionheart Coaching Academy. Is that the nonprofit?
We're for profit.
They're for profit. Okay, all
Mhm.
right. So this is what you do, and is this is the tool that you use or to get people ready or get that kid ready for the college experience. What when we say get ready for the college experience, what all does that entail? Because some people might say, getting ready for college experience, get my, I know I need bed sheets. Oh, I gotta get a TV. She's probably gonna tell me I need, ramen noodle. The, what does that entail?
One, we start as early as sixth grade. We don't take any student
Wait a
that
minute.
is.
S-
Mhm.
I'm sorry, sixth grade,
Mhm.
like elementary sixth grade.
Middle school, yeah, or elementary, depending on the
Yeah.
schools. Yeah. Hmm. Yes.
Okay.
So we start as early as sixth grade. We don't take any students in 10th grade or later. You have to come in at the very beginning of your 10th grade year if we're going to work with you. And then if you come in 11, 12, we refer you to another company. What we are optimizing for is a strategic plan that ensures that your student does not get burnt out in junior and senior year. So most, if not all, you can't say generalizations, but most high achieving students by 11th and 12th grade are burnt out, because the way that the traditional college process goes, it expects you to do your test prep and all your college applications in basically the same 2 years.
Okay.
And if you're a high achieving student, you're applying to many colleges. You're
Hmm.
also probably going to do a lot of scholarship applications.
Yes.
And so what we found when I was working with juniors and seniors, it was extremely stressful. As a coach, as a consultant, it's extremely transactional. We're just going back and forth on essays. And a lot of times it's very forced, because kids have not done the work to think about who they are, what they care about, what they value. And that's what the college admissions officer wants to see. And so we decided as a company that we weren't doing our best work when we felt like we had to essentially help kids force a narrative that wasn't true to who they are, or pressure work that inherently takes years. Like, you can't just overnight decide, this is my purpose and this is what I want to do with my life.
Okay.
That's impossible. So we start as early as sixth grade. I'm working with a sixth grader one-on-one right now. And the work that we're doing is she loves musical theater. I'm asking her how her friends would describe her. I'm asking her what plays has she been in. I'm asking her what were her favorite roles. I'm asking her what books she likes to read, what movies she likes to watch, what does she like to do with her family. I'm asking her all of these questions about who she is and what she enjoys. And we're building that relational rapport in giving her the space to figure out who she is and be able to articulate that.
And so after hearing that, because at first when you say sixth grade, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. But it sounds, after you explain it, it sounds as if this is basically, you're not only are you dealing with just prepping them for college, but you are literally walking with them through most of, those critical educational years. I'm But what would you say to the person? Because that blew my mind, sixth grade. I'm like, what? I can't even I don't even remember sixth grade, but but I, I know I wasn't prepping for college. I
Mm.
can tell you that much. That never even that was never a conversation. What do you say to the person and possibly the parent that says sixth grade? That is way too young, way too soon.
If they're open to hearing more about our approach, I'll share
Mhm.
what I'm sharing with you now. If
Not
Yeah.
so much your company's approach. Let's say,
Mm.
for instance, you're just I don't know, you're at a dinner party and you're talking to someone about what Lionheart Coaching Academy does, and they say sixth grade. That's far too soon. What would you say to that individual?
I would want to ask them why they feel like it's too soon. Most people, like I imagine you might have done to a certain extent when I shared it, are making assumptions about what college preparation entails. So
Mm,
the first thing I want to do is just gain understanding about someone else's understanding of college preparation. I understand most companies operate, it's just test scores, it's grades, and it's extracurricular selection. That is fundamentally like that is we don't even believe that people should pay us for that. You're not paying us for that because we have AI now. We have Google. Like, there's no reason I believe you need to hire a consultant. We are information rich in this society. You get a good prompt and or a good ebook, you can figure this out. So when parents are hiring us, they're not hiring us for information. They're not hiring us for a college list that you could have made with AI. They're hiring us to help our students start early, to understand who they are so they can take ownership over the process. One of the biggest ROIs for our families is parents often are becoming the managers of the application process. We say to our parents, you don't have to worry about it. We will manage it. We're going to coach your kid on self advocacy, self accountability. So our students are taking ownership. Our students are saying to their parents, hey, get on this. Our students are telling to their parents, this is the deadline, not the other way around. And that's
mm,
what our parents are paying us for. And for us, and I always say this to our parents, obviously we cannot guarantee admission to anywhere, but the greatest ROI, return of investment, is that your student is going to be able to advocate for themselves wherever they go. And that and their confidence in who they are was going to be stronger than the average student. And that is, for us, that's what makes this work meaningful. I don't care that you got into Princeton if you don't know who you are and you don't know how you want to make this world a better place. And I believe I'm doing an injustice to society to help a kid get into Princeton that doesn't really give a crap about other people or about how they're caring about others, because there's so many people at Princeton. It's like a joke. People come in wanting to become coming to become like work in service of humanity, because that's the Princeton's motto. But then more than half of students that graduate Princeton go into consulting to make a lot of money. So it's like even the pressure of the institution ends up optimizing for students that are not even there to make the world better. They're there to make money. They're there for their ambition. So for me, like knowing that, I'm like, I want to support students that actually have a purpose, a cause they want to support, knowing that that will change. Like I came into Princeton, like this is I thought my purpose was to be an environmental justice lawyer. And I was so sure about that. And then it changed. Now I'm in education. Like it completely flipped, right? And the signs were always there when I was younger. But so when I'm saying clarify purpose, I just want to say this for everyone listening. I am not saying that we expect a 13-year-old to get clear about who they are for the rest of their lives at 13. We're saying we want to equip them with the skills of introspection and self-discovery so they can evolve into who they are and and they have the skills to express that. So whether they start wanting to be a doctor, end as a lawyer, and then later become an entrepreneur, like the what is not as important as the why and the values that drive those decisions. And that's what we want to optimize for with our students and our families.
no, and as a wise man once said, you can't beat that with a bat. All right. So let's shift. Let's go. So we talked about Lionheart Coaching Academy, and now there's also Black Founders Formula, which
Mhm.
I believe you co-own that, right? Or
So Black Founders Formula is a program of Lionheart Coaching Academy. Right now we have 3 different programs.
okay. All right.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Talk about.
no, I was going to say, so all of our programs, we build curriculum for each program, and then we provide weekly coaching for our students as they're going through it. So for Black Founders Formula specifically, that's our program for high achieving Black 6th to 10th graders
Okay.
who want to go to a competitive college, a top college, and also optimize for merit scholarships.
Okay. Wow. So okay. So wow. And I keep hearing 10. Like, why is that 10th grade that cutoff? It sounds like there's a cutoff there. And even when you were talking about Lionheart Coaching Academy, you said, hey, if you don't get here before 10th grade, we're going to refer you to another company. Um, what is it about that 10th grade that makes it, if you haven't started, if you haven't put in the work before 10th grade, this may not be the tool for you. What is it about 10th grade?
Education consulting is an extremely profitable industry, and it's making millions and millions more every single year.
Hmm.
Most of that money is made off of juniors and seniors and the anxiety of parents and their lack of knowledge. As I said earlier, I don't believe lack of knowledge is the issue. And I mean, I do free strategy sessions, I do free resources all the time to literally coach parents on how to use AI. And I probably will make a course on it one day, but like to literally use and give it out for free, but to use AI to do this process. Because again, for me, like, I was low income because my dad was a pastor. My heart was like, people should have access and we should not be gatekeeping resources. That's like just a core conviction of who I am. Like, we're for profit, but we're very like for the people, right? That being said, the reason why we say 10th grade is because in junior year, what happens is that's usually when an average student is taking their first AP class.
Okay.
So academically, we've now just increased rigor. What that practically means is they have more homework. That's what it practically means. And then practically it means they have less time. So practically what that means is you probably don't want to add another, because we're kind of like our own course. We have a curriculum, our kids that work through it. You don't want to add another course in addition to this academic rigor, right? Like it's unfair. I believe it's just unfair to kids to ask them more when that's already the transition point for increased academic rigor. So what we're doing pre-10th grade is we're saying, let's deal with some of this other stuff before classes get harder. That's essentially what we're saying. And before you have to start actually picking out your college list and doing your essay. Like in 12th grade, all we're doing is helping you write good essays. And there's so many other people that you can hire for that. We just don't believe like that's our zone of genius for the work that we're called to do.
Gotcha. Got you. So you have, I don't want to say handheld, but you've guided these individuals from 6th grade up until, let's say, 10th grade. So that 11th and 12th grade, hey, they've given me everything I need to prepare in these next 2 years so that like you said, the stress and the anxieties that normally come in those 2 years is minimalized. It's more so of, oh my God, what do I do? And now it's got to get this done. All right, let me handle this first. And maybe they've even started. I'm wondering, have they even, like, the essays, have they probably started or made a template? I know that it's going to change because there's 2 years, left, and they just have to, fix it up a little bit and say,
So
okay,
we create something called their purpose compass, and it's
okay.
basically like our holy grail document for it's called a value proposition. It's the same thing in business where you have to understand what is your market differentiation, how are you setting yourself apart. So we have every student build a value proposition for themselves, and then a larger purpose compass document that essentially says like these are the core themes and values that influence your decisions, and that becomes the document by which we make decisions about what summer programs they should do, what independent projects they should do, what classes they should take. So by the time we get to essay time, we're just pulling from all of that information. We're literally copying, pasting from the document.
Okay.
And they've already written the essay, but they don't know they've written the essay. And that's why I love the work that we do, because our students that go through this process, it's easy. Like our senior I recently graduated with, I was working with her. She got so clear on who she was. She applied to one school early decision, got in, got a full ride. Like, we're here for the student to get so clear that we're only down to one school they want to go to anyway. And we know we've optimized their application in such a way that they can get an ED. Now, we still had a plan B for regular decision schools. We didn't just go in blind with that one thing, but we knew what we knew. We had a pretty good feeling of what she was going to be able to accomplish because of the work that we did with her starting soon.
Wow. I mean, hey, now that I don't think I've ever heard that before. So now I've heard people say, hey, I want to go to this school, but they've always got, as we say, plan B, plan C, but to say, hey, that's it. That's it. I'm not going to apply to any other school. That's the school. And to know that at an early age, I think that's amazing. Wow. I can see how the work that you guys do, I can see how it's just stripping the layers of, potential anxiety and potential stress away from not only the student, but I imagine the parents when they see this are like, "Oh
They're
my god."
crying.
Yeah, I can imagine. They're like,
They're like,
"Man,
they're like, why didn't you charge us more money? Like that's
what?
literally the reaction.
We can make
Because
that happen." I'm just kidding.
it's not just, and I get so passionate about this, it's not just the admission. Like when I was editing that student's final essay when she was submitting for her early decision school, she literally told me, no, Nicole, I don't like this part of your feedback. And she went with what she wanted to do. Like the ROI for, like they know who they are. And so many companies are capitalizing on this. Oh, you have to write the perfect essay. The perfect essay can make up for this lack of XYZ. If you know who you are, you know what you want to contribute. The writing is just a communication tool. So if you have nothing to communicate, the essay is garbage no matter how good your writing
Mm,
skill is, right? And
that's a
so
garbage.
we wanted to have students who had gold to communicate. So then the communication is easy. So the fact that she wanted to reject my counsel about how to write this last paragraph, awesome. It's okay. You know who you are. You know what you want. You know how you want to communicate who you are. That's the greatest value add, and that's how she's going to start college.
Wow. Yeah, just hearing you talk about that process, just
Mm,
the whole process, you could hear the passion,
mm,
you can hear the necessity in your
mm,
voice. Going back to, I think you said 8 or 9, or was it 9 and 10 years old when your
mm.
father made the move from Wall Street to a pulpit?
Yep. Hmm.
Do you think that was the catalyst that spurred this passion? Maybe just the seed, um, um, seeing your father do it,
Hmm.
and then you in a way, you're kind of picking up, you know, that that purpose and running and taking in an extra, mile. Do you think that was the catalyst that spurred, you know, your passion?
100%. And it was not only my dad, it was my mom. She left my mom's dream was to be on the cover of Black Enterprise. She
Mm.
left that successful career in finance to support my dad. And when he said he
So
wanted to become a
so wait a minute.
missionary,
So dad was in Wall Street,
yes,
mom was in
in
successful
finance.
in the finance industry, and they just said, "You know what? That's it."
Took the 4 kids and 2 dogs, and we were washing clothes by hand. We could only afford one uniform, so I would have to wash it by hand every night.
Wow.
Being mad at my sister for playing a little too hard. And so I watched my parents do this. And then when we got back to the States, my mom co-founded with my dad our church's nonprofit branch. And she's served as the executive director now for over a decade. And I was hands-on in that. I got to help. I actually created their college access program. I got to be a part of the food insecurity initiatives, it's initiatives around homelessness. So like I was like social impact is like my family's. It's our thing. We believe it is our moral obligation. We believe that if we're going to be who we believe God has called us to be, if we're not giving back, if we're not serving, like I think my whole family has felt we have all these gifts, we have had all this access. It is our life's mission to translate that into services for others. So it was wholeheartedly both of them. And my mom, being as an executive director, it was still hard work, but it wasn't as intensive as the finance career. So she could drive me lunch sometimes, at school. So, their service. My mom would bring homeless people to our house and wash them. Like, their service
Wow.
was
Oh my
like, so yeah, I am not born in a vacuum by any means.
god, man. Wow. I find that amazing. It's refreshing to hear someone who claims to be in service or for service actually doing service,
Mm,
as opposed to, because you hear so many times of, not so good
mm,
experiences, especially coming from the church.
mm-hmm,
And to hear how your parents have, uh, that's a lot. Like wow, I commend. Are they still? They still have the church, or
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah.
wow? Wow. You know what? Shout your church, shout their church out. Because it's uh, we shout out the bad ones in a heartbeat. Oh my
Mm,
God, we love putting them on social media. Oh,
mm,
don't go to the good ones, the ones that are actually serving the community
mm.
and the people. They don't get a lot of limelight. So shout your parents' church out there for us.
Of course. And I just have to say, what I love about my dad and his pastoral leadership, and I'm not saying he's without issues. My dad and I have gone to therapy together, and so have me and my mom. We have our issues. That being said, what I love about it is it's a congregation of less than 100 people, but they
Mhm.
have hundreds of volunteers for the food bank every single week. So the name is Bethel Church of Morristown. And if you are considering looking into it, don't look into it just for attending church. My dad's a great preacher, but like truly, it is community around social impact, around actually helping people. I love it. It's awesome.
Awesome, awesome. So there you guys, and that's where that's in
Morristown, New Jersey.
New Jersey. There you go. There you go.
Hmm,
Because
hmm,
all right,
hmm.
so
Yeah, there's a
Morristown,
lot
New
of
Jersey.
Bethel churches.
I think everybody has a
Yeah,
Bethel
everybody has a
or
Bethel
two.
down the street.
Yeah. So right across the street from each other. But
That's funny.
so um if a parent is listening and let's say for instance their child is, let's say, 8th grade. Let's put it smack dab in the middle. 8th grade, and they say, "Man, what she said makes complete sense." And I'm getting anxiety just thinking about what my child or children are going to have to do to get into college. What's I guess the one thing, there's two things I want you to, one thing, what's the one thing they're going to have to adopt in their mindset? And what's the one thing they're going to have to release in their mindset?
That's a great question. One thing, I think the one thing that has to be adopted and also released, I think they're but one and the same,
Mhm.
is adopting a commitment to have one clear strategic plan. So,
Okay.
however you want to, if you want to AI it out, however, hire consultants, do whatever, but have one clear strategic plan, work that together with your kid, and it's, and allow it to evolve and change, but map something out.
Okay.
What are the goals? Are we trying to get merit money? Are we trying to get need-based aid? Are we trying to shoot for the Ivies? Are we trying to do HBCUs, or do we not know? Are we trying to prepare for all of them? Like, just think about the goal, map it out backwards, use AI if you want to do that.
Mhm.
Obviously, I would say come hire us. But then release, I'm gonna
Of
say
course.
release unbiased, release the need to incorporate everybody else's opinions. I have this one mom in particular who she's constantly telling me, "Oh, I had a conversation with this person." And I'm like, okay, does this person have this like expertise? She'll be like, no, their kid just got into Harvard. And I'm like, just because the kid got into Harvard doesn't
Yeah.
mean that they have all the answers. So release your need to compare your kid to that other mom's kid. It's toxic. Your kid's plan is not their plan. Like my plan to get to Princeton is not the plan that I implement for a lot of my kids because we're different people and we're in
Exactly.
different times too. But yeah, stop
Yes.
copy and pasting.
Yeah. Ooh, got the copy.
Release copy and paste.
So there they are. They just heard that and they said, okay, clearly I'm above my head. How do they contact Lionheart Coaching Academy? How do they contact Black Founders
Formula. Hmm.
Formula? Or how do they contact you? And you know, so they can start this process and relieve them and their children of all of this stress and anxiety.
If you're a parent listening to this, I'm sure there's a lot of food for thought. I would love to just connect with you and talk through it with you. So you can just email me, Nicole at lionheartcoaching.academy. And I would love for us to get connected and we'll point you in the right resources, whether that's with our company or someone else.
That's awesome. All right. So, listen, everybody, success shouldn't cost you your peace, your identity, or your sense of self. All right. Excellence is powerful, but wholeness is sacred. Today's conversation reminds us that the achievement without wholeness is not, the win that we were promised. The Black families, especially excellence has too often come with the silent sacrifice, and it doesn't have to be that way, because we have people like Nicole Olaniyi and her organization's doing the work of champions for us. So if they want to reach out and find you, where can they find you on social media, all that good stuff? Where can they locate you?
Email is best. You definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. And our website for Black Founders Formula is blackfoundersformula.com. And then Lionheart is Lionheart Coaching Academy.
All right. So as you reflect on today's conversation, everyone, I hope it challenges you to ask not just how far you can go, but how whole you can remain while going there. Again, I'm showing off now because it was so difficult for me to pronounce it at first. Now I'm showing off. Miss Olaniyi, thank you again for coming on the Lifestrong Project. I think the work you do is amazing. My hat's off to you. Prayers going out to you guys to continue doing what you're doing, and that you just be successful in everything that you do. Both you and your husband and what you do, and your parents too. You know what? And your parents' church. That's right. So. On behalf of Nicole Olaniyi and myself, AC, your host, I appreciate you guys listening in on the Lifestrong Project. And remember, everyone, your life is fleeting. Your life is. I'm messing up my own. How you mess up your own outro? All right,
That too.
Your life is fleeting. Cherish it. Your life is ever changing. You have to adapt to it. Most of all, your life is yours. Only you can live it. This is AC along with Nicole Olaniyi. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Lifestrong Project.